Hello YouTube, this is Adam Noyce of AN Productions and welcome to this review of Zack and Miri Make a Porno. I'm reviewing a romance movie and I'm not going to be tearing it apart. So I've stated in many videos before, and those who have followed me, the few of you that they are, know my opinion when it comes to a lot of romances in film. And that is I don't like them. That is I try to avoid them as much as possible. I have shit-mouthed so many romances in movies, it's not even funny. However, I wanted to be very clear right now that I don't hate romances. I don't hate romantic comedies. Well, I do hate romantic comedies. So I was watching a review. Somebody stated that this is one of the best romantic comedies that they've ever seen because this movie was first and foremost a romance movie, not a comedy. Most romantic comedies are usually comedies with a romance side plot. I agree with that statement, and this film perfectly fits that mode. I'm a sucker for romances, I'll be completely honest. It's, I guess, believe it or not, that this asshole sitting before you actually does kind of think he has somewhat of a heart. I'm a bit of a sucker for these kind of romantic movies. What I don't like in romances is when a romance is shoved into a bigger movie. If you've noticed that whenever I've complained about a romance, it was with a movie where something bigger is going on and it was thrown in there just to get butts and seats. This is one reason why I love director Ishiro Honda so much. Ishiro Honda has romances in his films, such as the one in the original Godzilla and one in even Terror Mechagodzilla. One at the very beginning of his career, one at the very end of his career. Those romances are really good because they tie intricately into the plot. And they're interesting. They tie intricately into the plot, as in without this romance, we wouldn't get the movie that we have. We wouldn't be able to get from point A to point B without this romance kind of getting in the way. But one of the reasons, yes, sure, some of them in his movies are kind of clunky, but one reason why I love Honda is that a lot of times when there are romances in his films, they're usually shoved way in the background. He lets the plot take over. He lets the characters take over. And that's what I like. I don't like it when there's this random romantic subplot that has no need to be there. For example, in my review of the 300 Spartans with Patrick Galvin, I pissed all over that romance that's in between these two characters in there. And that's because it had nothing to do with the plot. This romance would not progress the plot whatsoever. That's an example of what I mean by this. And most Hollywood films feel like they need a romance in the film. And that drives me up the goddamn wall. Because people think that horny teenage girls, that's who the demographic is, horny teenage girls will not watch a movie if it doesn't have some sort of romantic connection in it. Alright? And that drives me nuts, because no longer is it about a good plot. Nor it's no longer about that. It's no longer about getting from point A to point B. Now it's about who's going to fall in love with who, and that, I despise that with films. I do. Okay? What'll make me want to get into a theater and watch a movie and say I like it is if, one, the plot is good, or two, the characters are good. Okay? One reason why I love Mass Effect 2 so much. The game. It's a game, I know it's a game, but you'll see where I'm going with this with a little bit. One of the reasons why I love Mass Effect 2 so much is because the characters are outstanding. Okay? The characters are what drive Mass Effect 2. The plot is actually very minimal. You have to save these colonies from the collectors and then you have to destroy the collectors. That's the plot. That's simple. On its own, if you didn't have interesting characters, that plot would suck. The game would suck. But no, they focused on the characters and made it extremely well. The characters were what drove that game. On a movie spectrum, a story in which we have a good plot but we don't have exactly the best of characters is the Andromeda Strain. The Andromeda Strain, directed by Robert Wise, is one of my favorite films of all time, and in my opinion has the best cinematography in any movie ever. The Andromeda Strain had a very interesting and intense plot to drive the entire film, and you were curious to see what was going to happen next, and if they were going to stop this virus from spreading in time. That is a good plot, an interesting plot. They focused on the plot more than they focused on the characters, which I think they made the right decision. Instead, what they gave us with characters, instead of giving us a full three-dimensional characters where they change from beginning to end, and they kind of go through like the hero's journey, no. Instead, here, in the Andromeda Strain, the characters were memorable in their personalities. That's how we remembered which character was which, was their personality. I like that, and I like that a lot. In fact, that's my kind of movie. What I want in a romance is two characters who have chemistry. If there's gonna be a romance in anything, I want a romance where two characters have chemistry. Okay? One of my problems with the Fall of the Roman Empire is that I didn't feel like that romance worked because the two characters had no chemistry. Same thing with El Cid. Now, I've fallen into this trap before. Why am I bitching about this if you've fallen into the trap before, Adam? Isn't that hypocritical? Yes, it is. Because when I made the Compound of Chaos, the last movie in the Z trilogy, I made the character Zeke and the character Fran fall in love. That was the biggest mistake out of all the problems I had making that movie, out of all the horse shit that went on during the making of that film. That was my biggest mistake, was making those two fall in love. They didn't work. They didn't work, and people told me that they didn't work, and that is why I've changed my opinion on it. Before I wanted a romance. Now I hardly ever do anything. In the Godzilla saga, for example, there are these two characters that kind of like each other, but they never kiss. The most that the characters get is a kiss on a cheek or a hug. The romance is not the purpose of the story. It does not service the plot. Therefore, it's not needed. However, if there is going to be a romance, it must either service the plot, as I've said before, or, in some ways more importantly sometimes, these characters need to have chemistry. Now, this film is directed by Kevin Smith. This is my favorite movie he's made, okay? Granted, I've only seen 3 of his films. I've seen this movie, Tusk, which is outstanding, and Cop Out, which is one of the worst pieces of shit ever made. So I don't have the biggest background with Kevin Smith in terms of his films. And this overall is my favorite. I will pick this one over either Tusk or Cop Out. As much as I love Tusk. Tusk, I think, is one of the funnier movies made that year. It was hysterical. Now, back when I was a part of the Sons of Sarazawa, and thank God I've grown up since then, I used to say that I hated Kevin Smith, and that I thought he was an arrogant, pompous douchebag. Though I still think he is a bit of a pompous douchebag, I think that's kind of a part of Kevin Smith's charm now. I've learned to respect him quite a bit, okay? I don't listen to his podcast. I don't really watch anything. In fact, the first time I watched Zack and Miri Made a Porno, I had no idea who Kevin Smith was. I just liked the movie. And when I went in to see Tusk, I didn't even know that was a Kevin Smith movie. It was really Tusk that made me realize that I liked Kevin Smith. No, I haven't seen Clerks. I should. People say it's my kind of humor. We'll see about that. What I like about Kevin Smith is that I love his sense of humor, and I also admire his passion for film. What I respect a lot about Kevin Smith is that he's not just a geek for comics, so that's what he's basically known for, and that's what his character is basically derived from. He's not just a fan of those. He's a fan of like the George Romero movies, the Grindhouse films. I mean, that's what Tusk was paying homage to with those Grindhouse films. And his passion for film is really admirable. It's kind of like George Lucas. I don't like George Lucas very much. I don't really like George Lucas very much. However, I admire his passion for film. I do. I really, really admire that. And Kevin Smith is the same way. Do I listen to all of Kevin Smith's stuff? No, but I really admire his absolute passion for film. Hell, Tom Savini makes a cameo in this movie, okay? And it was also shot near in the Dawn of the Dead Mall. Part of this movie was shot in the Dawn of the Dead Mall. There's a reason why Tom Savini has a cameo in this movie, and that's because Kevin Smith fucking loves Dawn of the Dead, and rightfully so. That movie is fucking masterful. Also, one of the best cameos ever, because Tom Savini in anything is great. We can't have enough of Tom Savini. Now, what Kevin Smith wanted with this movie was that he wanted this to be his break into Hollywood. Because before this, he'd made several independent films, and they were successful, but they weren't like Hollywood-level films. He wanted this to be his break into Hollywood. That's why he hired Seth Rogen. Seth Rogen was a very popular actor, and he still is a very popular actor. However, this film flopped and made very little money back, which Kevin Smith was mortified by this. What I admire about this is that Kevin Smith was mortified by this. He was so worried that he killed Seth Rogen's career and everything like that. Seth Rogen's a champ. Alright, Seth Rogen is also a champ, and he never blamed Kevin Smith for any of this or any of that. But I do feel bad for Kevin Smith, because Kevin Smith felt very bad that this film flopped. And what I also like about Kevin Smith is that Kevin Smith did not blame people for the problems with the film. One of the problems I had, and this speaks how immature I was I blamed other people for the problems of Compound of Chaos when really it fell on me. What I admire about Kevin Smith was that he was mature enough to not blame any of the cast or blame the audience, but instead he blamed himself. He blamed himself for the problem, and I will admire him for that, though I don't think it was completely his fault. I blame the marketing of the film. Mainly, the marketing for this movie was piss poor. I was much younger when this film came out, but I remembered the commercials, and I was like, this looks horrible. And I was very happy to say that I watched it. It was actually very surprising. And so this is why Kevin Smith really kind of stuck to making podcasts and stuff, with the exception of Cop Out, you know? He realized he could make more money there, and that he didn't want to fuck anyone else's career over, even though he pretty much fucked over... what's that? The black guy's name from Cop Out. Whatever. That movie's a piece of shit. Sorry, that movie is so terrible. And what this film reminds me of, and you're gonna laugh, what this film reminds me of and why I watch it over and over again, isn't really for the romance, I'll be completely honest. It's for the scenes where they're shooting porn. No, not because I'm horny and I'm jerking off. No, because it reminded me a lot of that excitement that I had when I first started making movies. When I got my first camera, I was making movies like Attack of the Giant Cat, and my cat Tanner was running through a bunch of Lego buildings, destroying things, and I had like little tiny tanks on strings shooting at it. It reminded me of that because of Seth Rogen mainly. Seth Rogen, Zack, is very, very energetic about it, and you can tell that he's very, very excited about making the film. Or making porn. I mean, who wouldn't be? And what I like about this is that, you know, Zack, when he's going out making his porn, he's just doing nothing but grabbing his friends and saying, let's make a porno, and everyone's like, yeah! Everyone's dreamed about making porn, let's face it, and I do include myself in that list. I've always said that if my filming career goes down the tank, which it hasn't really taken off, let's face it, but if it completely goes down the shitter, I am definitely getting into the porn industry. Let it be known, right? But I grabbed my friends and we just made shit. We made movies like The Iron Cross and Don't Tread on Me, and even the first two films in the Zeke trilogy. And this reminded me of that so much, of just friends who were just laughing and having a good time making porn. And I like that. And there's a great quote in the film that is my favorite quote in the entire film, and it's when the DP character is walking away. They're like, how did it look? And he says, Zack is like, how did it look? And the DP says, it looked like shit going into other shit. In focus. I loved that. I loved that so much. That statement embodied my very, very, very early experiments of making film, and I was like, yeah, this is funny. and I really dug it, and I dug the characters. And now here I am working on my third feature film, and I've won several awards for my short films, and I've made a lot of money making these films, and now I'm even going to start selling them on DVD once again. Now, one of the reasons why I also really like this movie is that I like Zack and Miri. I do. I really, really enjoy Zack and Miri. And one of the reasons why I actually like their romance is because they have great, great, great chemistry. That is the greatest thing with this movie, is that our two lead protagonists, Zack and Miri, have wonderful, wonderful chemistry. And Kevin Smith fantastically embodied that. Again, this being a romance first and a comedy second. There are several scenes of Zack and Miri working together and finishing each other's sentences. For example, why these two characters are starting to make porn is because both of them have terrible spending habits. Seth Rogen had, instead of paying some of his electricity bill for the month, he bought a electric-powered fleshlight. So their electricity goes out, they lose their heat, they lose everything, and so that's when they decide to make porn, because it'll make them quite a bit of money. And it would. The porn industry, no matter how bad the economy is or anything like that, is always booming. That's why The Internet is for Porn is one of my favorite songs of all time. Thank you very much, Avenue Q. But what I like about that is when they decide to make porn, when they're coming up with ideas for titles and for what they're going to do and how they're going to do a sci-fi porno, is Zack and Miri are finishing each other's sentences. They're thinking on the same, they're clearly on the same wavelength. And whenever they're really together, they are very often on the same wavelength. And I like that. That's good character stuff. I really enjoyed seeing these two trying to figure out what are they going to do to make a movie. What are they got to grab? How are they going to pay for it? What's this going to do? And oh, what if we did this? Oh yeah, I like that, but what if we did this? Oh my god, that's totally awesome. That's great stuff. And I love that. Because even if this wasn't a romance and just focused on them making porn, I would dig these two like there's no tomorrow, because they're such good friends and they come off as such great friends. That's wonderful. And wonderful acting on both of the part of the girl who plays Miri, I don't know her name, please forgive me, she's beautiful, and Seth Rogen. And it's great. They do a very good job. And also their friendship is also very, very well personified in the scene where the people turn off their water because they haven't paid their water bill or whatever. They turn off the water. And what I like about it is that they're getting ready to go to a high school reunion. We'll get into that a little later. Miri is putting the shit in her hair to make it all nice, and luckily I don't need to worry about that. And all of a sudden the water shuts off, and she's like, I really like how Seth Rogen is very careful not to see her naked and everything like that, even though they're so comfortable with each other. There's still some barrier of decency left between these two characters. I like that. But he's like, what do you want to do? She's like, grab that cup, scoop out a bunch of water from the toilet, and so I can use it and pour it on my head. And he's like, okay. I just like how this scene is edited. It's really well. It's funny. It's awkward, and it also embodies their friendship very well. And then he opens up the toilet. And he's like, oh, there's poo in there. And that line gets me to laugh every time. He's like, not from the bowl, you idiot, from the back. And I was like, yeah, all right. And that's a great scene. However, the scene that really embodies their relationship in a nutshell, their friendship relationship in a nutshell, really, was during a scene where she was talking about how she looks and everything. Mary was talking about how she looks, and Seth Rogen says, you remember I talked you out of wearing that completely ugly prom dress, and instead we hung out together and got pissed drunk during prom. They didn't go prom and they got pissed drunk. I love that scene because of how quiet it is and how very true it is. I went to prom. I did. And I don't regret going to prom whatsoever because I had great friends, or people who I thought were friends, you know? And I had fun. But to be completely honest, if I was with my best friend and they said, let's fucking ditch prom and let's just get pissed drunk, I'd fucking do it. I'd do it. And I think I'd have a better time doing that than I would socializing and having a life, quite frankly. And I love that scene. That scene just embodies their friendship so well, and God, I just really admire it. I think that scene was it's beautifully shot. Very simple camera moves. Again, this movie is very minimalistic when it comes to their camera movements, and it was made on a pretty tight budget. Most of the money went towards the actors, and I just love how Kevin Smith, instead of doing push-ins and everything like that and all these dramatic camera movements, he just had the camera static, just sitting there like my camera is now. Very minimalistic, and it worked for this film because this film is very minimalistic, and I really like that, and that scene was just beautifully done. Beautifully done. Now, Zack is kind of like a low-life character, right? That no one remembers, and he works at a coffee shop, and he has absolutely no ambitions whatsoever. Right, he's just content working with his shitty life, getting hand jobs in the park once in a while. He's really content with his life, and I'm like, why do I think that he is based slightly off of Kevin Smith? Probably because Kevin Smith wrote this fucking thing. Seth Rogen has always nailed that kind of performance. Okay, he's always brought to life these kind of performances. I like Seth Rogen. There are movies that he's made that I haven't watched, of course, but I do like Seth Rogen. The other movie that I really liked Seth Rogen in was Paul, and that was another example of why I think Seth Rogen is a really good actor. Though we'll maybe talk about that later, I don't know. But Seth Rogen nails this performance. And just the level of excitement when he both is thinking about making porn and when he's actually making porn is absolutely phenomenal. He looks like a child. He looks like a child in a candy store. And in fact, I think Miri calls him out on that. And she says she likes the ambitious ambitious Seth Rogen. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's really good. And that's really cheeky, and that's really nice. And he looks like a kid in a candy store. And he looks like somebody who's genuinely loving what he's doing. For the really first time throughout the film, he doesn't just look content with stuff. He looks like he's actually selfishly loving what he's doing. And I really like that. Seth Rogen, fucking nailed it. For example, the scene where their first set when they were making Star Wars was the studio was completely knocked out because Tom Savini fucked them over. And so they're back at the coffee shop thinking of what to do, and then they're like, oh, he's like, swallow my cockachino, and he's thinking on his feet, like, how are we going to do this? So we're just going to use, instead of a high-tech camera, we're going to use a simple camcorder, like the one that I've got, and call it good enough, and hook a regular old stage microphone up to a fucking hockey stick, and I'm like, that's funny, and he's thinking about doing all this and everything, and they already have a set already made. I love that. I fucking love that. He looked like a kid in a candy store, and it in some ways reminded me of me when I was trying to figure out what to shoot when I was in high school. And I really enjoyed that. That was awesome. Miri, on the other hand, is a drunk. Is a drunk, and she has... What I like about her is that she's a drunk, but she's not a mindless drunk. She has a brain in her head, which is important for a character like her, and I really admire that. The high school reunion scene is my favorite with her, because she wants nothing but to get back at this high school jock who made fun of her a lot. I forgot the nickname that she had, but she just wants to get back at him and fuck him over and literally have sex with him just to fuck him over and everything like that, to get back at him. And all of a sudden it turns out that jock, despite her coming on to him and her getting really drunk, is gay. And I also love the fact that Zack gets a hand job from that really jealous wife when she sees her husband flirting with like a cheerleader or something like that. That was funny. But what I like about that scene in particular is that it shows you just how much fucking bullshit there is in high school, and how people in high school are completely different outside of high school. And what I mean by that is that, and I do mean this, is that usually the popular kids in high school tend to turn out to be the fucking losers who work at a coffee store their whole life, you know? And I really fucking love that scene, because that scene just perfectly embodies just how much bullshit there is in high school. Now let's actually talking about the meat of all this, and that is the relationship between Zack and Miri. The first time I watched this, I thought it was a bit clunky. However, I picked up on a lot more subtle things that foreshadowed the whole relationship as I watched it the second time. One of those is the way they look at each other when they start making porn. Right. Not when they actually shoot their own sex scene, but there are scenes with the way how Miri will look over at Zack when he's directing, and then there will be scenes where he glances over at her when she's like jumping up and down in excitement. I love that. It's these little tiny facial expressions that they have. Specifically, the first time they actually shoot porn, which is in the coffee shop, is really, really, really good. And I just love the excitement that these two characters have, and they have chemistry, and I'm like, that's the best thing about it. But it really begins with the conversation about them fucking each other. How Miri is, we'll get into this more a little later because it comes up. Oh, well, fuck it, we'll get into that now. Zack is like, yeah, we'll fuck each other and it'll be okay. And Mary's like, no, yeah. They're kind of like in denial because they're such close friends and they don't really want to mess anything up by fucking each other. And I really understand that because it's happened to a lot of my friends before. It is a really personal thing. You know, we all have that friend of the opposite sex that we get really, really close to, and that if something like this was to happen, it would probably be a little different. And, you know, things would be a little different between to be it better or be it worse. You know, this is the kind of awkward situation that's bringing up here. And what I like about that is that Zack is not wanting her to fuck anyone else but him, even before the whole fight scene, which we'll get into a little later. What I like about that and why he does that is because he's protecting her. He's protecting Miri. Not even, I don't think really even consciously he's doing it. Subconsciously, he's such good friends with her. He does it without even thinking about he's doing anything. He's actually thinking he's doing the right thing. But he does it because she says a line when they first talk about it is that Miri said, "I'd rather it be with you than a complete stranger." And she said she'd much rather have it be with him. And that kind of embodies their friendship right there, is that they're so close. Miri is kind of shy, and I like that about her. The only reason why she gets the courage to go out to the jock is because she is pissed drunk. She's very, very nervous, and she's very, very shy. She says, I'd only want to do that with you. Tugged on my heartstrings a little bit there. And I was like, aw. And again, the only reason why that worked is because they have such great, great chemistry. And what I really like about it is that it actually took these two characters having sex to make them realize just how much they mean with each other. Now, what would be interesting, in my opinion, is if I would still like these two a lot, even if they didn't actually form a relationship, a loving relationship after they shot that. Instead, they still remain good friends, and it shows the trust that they have. However, it does blossom into, in my opinion, a pretty decent relationship, which is fine as well. It took them doing something dramatic like that for them to actually do anything, to actually see that, oh my god, they actually care for each other. And I think what happened was that both of them knew, just by how they looked at each other and made eye contact and everything, knew that they liked each other a lot, but just never were able to put like a name to it. We're never really to put a name to it. I hope you understand what I'm saying by that. And it took them fucking for them to realize, oh my god, I genuinely care for this person. That's when they were able to actually connect the dots and realize that's what it is. I really like that, because even if they didn't get in a romantic relationship, they still loved each other. They loved each other but in a different way, if that makes any sense at all. I kind of feel out of my comfort zone talking about this. I just decided to review this just to because one, I was really into watching the movie, and two, I thought it'd be something new to talk about. So I hope I'm making sense and not just blabbering on about something that I really don't know anything about. And then comes their fight. Every romantic comedy movie has to have the classic fight scene, where our couple splits up and goes to separate ways and need to be brought back together. I preferred it that they just stayed together and made porn. Really. I really would have, because I felt like the movie got quite cliche at this moment, where both characters went astray. And it took their friends to bring them back together and be happy in the end. I'd really prefer it if they just stayed together and made porn. And focus on them continuing to build from there. That's what I personally would have done. However, what Smith did with this script in their fight was okay. My only complaint with what Smith really did is that it just kind of ends. Like, there's no what happens after. Sure, there's the epilogue scene, though I'm not quite sure if that epilogue scene is real or if it was just a joke that Kevin Smith threw together, because, I mean, Kevin Smith is known to do that. I mean, look at the entirety of Tusk, or specifically the ending to Tusk, where it's nothing but one giant fucking joke. So the movie just kind of ends. However, what I like here is that both characters, Zack and Miri, mainly Zack, is that the confusion is that they don't know what their feelings spell out as. They don't know what their feelings, and I've kind of talked about this before, where we don't know how to place a name for what we are feeling. We're feeling angry, we're feeling bitter, and why are we feeling bitter, and why are we feeling angry? And it's because we care a lot. Every person in the world suffers from that same damn thing. And Kevin Smith, I believe, did a very good job at portraying that. Be it with a romantic relationship, or be it with just like your best friend, be it with a relative, something like this happens. And that's really brought up when Katie Morgan asks Miri if she could fuck Zack. Now, on a side note, I laughed so hard when I saw Katie Morgan in this movie, because Katie Morgan is a well-known porn star. And the only reason why I know she's a porn star is because I watched a lot of HBO After Dark. Wink, wink. But really, what this is when Katie Morgan asks Miri if she could fuck Zack, it's nothing but Miri testing Zack if he would sleep with somebody else. Which is quite a bitch move. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay, what a cunt. And I didn't like her at that moment. And what's interesting is that Zack actually doesn't fuck her. He doesn't fuck Katie Morgan. That's not even her name in the movie, but I'm going to call her Katie Morgan because that's who it is. Zack doesn't even fuck Katie Morgan. Instead, he talks about how much he loved Miri and how he was trying to put... Because really, if it wasn't for Katie Morgan was the reason why Zack was finally able to connect the dots and say, oh my god, I'm in love with Miri. And I really liked that. However, Miri thinks that they just fucked. And what I like is that Zack finally gathers up the courage after a little bit of a fight to admit that he loves Miri, basically from the advice of Katie Morgan. And there's even a scene at the very beginning where it sounds like they're talking about they fucked, but really it's them talking about, because if you go back, it actually makes sense. Because at the very beginning when they're about to shoot the first thing of anal, funniest, most disgusting scene in the movie, Zack was like, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, everything will be fine. Nothing is weird between us. It's okay." And then all of a sudden you realize that they're not talking about the fact that they fucked. They're talking about the fact that she gave him advice, and he's taking that advice. It goes into the relationship that they have with their cast very well. But Zack finally admits that he loves her, and what I hate is that, well, I don't hate it, but Miri says, "Get over yourself, it was only a fuck." And may I just say that the actress who played Miri, because she thinks Zack fucked Katie, the actress who played Miri did such a good job with that scene, because she's clearly hurting so bad, but she doesn't want to show it. It's all in the actress's eyes. They start turning red, and she's fighting back tears, and one of them never drops until Seth Rogen actually leaves the room. It's wonderfully done, especially the shots on her, because she is clearly just falling the fuck apart because she's lied to Seth Rogen, and she knows that it was more than just a fuck. But she's basically retreating into a cold shell. And then she realizes that they actually didn't fuck at all. Katie Morgan didn't fuck Zack at all. And then they get back together in the end, and all is amazing. It's pretty damn good. It is pretty damn good that their friends are the ones that bring them together. Speaking of their friends, it is important that we talk about them a little bit as well. They are not full three-dimensional characters, and I like the fact that Kevin Smith didn't just focus on that. I like the fact that Kevin Smith was like, okay, they're important, but they're not overly important to the plot, so we'll focus on Zack and Miri more. But I love the producer, the black guy, who's from Hot Tub Time Machine. I love him. I just love the actor in general. He's just so funny with his, like, really monotone voice and his blank face. And he's really funny. The DP is fucking hysterical, because all he did was shoot varsity basketball games or something. And only because he wanted to get laid by one of the cheerleaders, and he didn't care which one. I love that. but the only reason why he's the DP here is because Seth Rogen knew who he was. And then you have the woman who can queef the bubbles, and she actually gives Katie Morgan, she actually gives Miri advice, because she's about to shoot a sex scene with Zack, and she asks Miri, "Is it all right?" And Miri's like, "Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't it be?" And the queef woman goes, "Well, because you guys seemed really, really intimate. And I just want to make sure, ask if it's okay." That goes to show the relationship that this cast and crew have. And then there's the stripper Katie Morgan, who is a complete ditz, who likes anal for some reason. And that made me laugh. And then we have Lester, who is... I'm so glad he's the one having most of the sex in this movie. But he's a real idiot. He doesn't know anything, but you can tell he cares. I really like that, and it's even nice how the relationship forms, because they're very thankful for Zack, and such a friendship forms between all of them, either on screen or off screen, because they willingly pay Zack and Miri's bills for 1 month as a thank you. They managed to cough up enough money to do that, and I really like that scene. And then they all get drunk together and just have a good old party time, and I really like that. They become really good friends, and they are a team. They work together very, very well, and they kick ass together, despite the fact that the DP winds up getting shit all over his face because Katie Morgan was constipated and doing a fucking anal scene. And you know what's even more disgusting about that scene? It's not just brown gunk that goes over him. There's corn in it. And I'm like, oh god, I love that chick just frosted me like I was a fucking cake. That scene, oh god, it's so disgusting, it made me laugh. But these guys are nothing but a bunch of misfits, just making porn. And I like that, because when I was shooting my films, we were nothing but a bunch of fucking geeky misfits going, and we still are when we're making Which Way They Walk. We still are nothing but a bunch of misfits going out there and making a fucking movie and trying to have a good time making one. And that's what we get here. And I really, really, really love that. This is a fun movie. I absolutely adore this film. It's really good, and it's my favorite movie that Kevin Smith made. I think it's really well edited, except for the ending. I think the ending kind of cuts off too quickly. And I would recommend this wholeheartedly. I think this is a really fun movie, a very nice movie to watch, and funny. And I think the cinematography was really good. It's all minimalistic and done on a budget, and it still looks great, and it fit the tone of the movie really well. Kind of reminded me of Shameless, where Shameless is very minimalistic. It didn't need to have a huge budget like The Walking Dead, because it's just a story about people trying to live in Chicago. This is the same thing, you know. This is just a bunch of people making porn, you know. Before that, I give Zack and Miri 3.5 out of 4 stars. So that being said, go on Facebook, like AA Production for up-to-date information on what the hell's going on with YouTube and to read some of my text reviews. Go on Facebook, like the Godzilla Saga, and like my new movie, Which Way They Walk, on Facebook. We're about to reach 100 likes. Stay tuned for Which Way They Walk, as we have only one more film to shoot before we wrap. And hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment telling me how much you either hate or detest this movie, or about why I'm such an idiot when it comes to romance. And in the end, this is Adam Noyce of AA Productions saying, join Geeks for Geeks. It's a wonderful group where we do nothing but geek out over stupid things. Sayonara.